morning. My name is Jackie and I'm Senior Enterprise Development Officer in the Local Enterprise Office in Waterford, where we help startups or established businesses through advice, information, training and mentoring. So please check out our website, localenterprise.ie/Waterford, for contact details and further information. And feel free to contact us at any time. I'd like to welcome you all to our final event for Local Enterprise Week, which is streaming on both YouTube and Facebook. This has been a busy week for the Leos and we are delighted with the sign up to the events both locally and nationally. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning, and if you booked in through our webpage, we have all your email details, so we will soon send you on a link to an ebook that will expand on the tips that you will receive throughout the event here this morning. Before we commence the event proper, I'd like to let you know that the local enterprise offices are running a competition, and to be in with a chance to win a €200 voucher, all you need to do is share your favourite highlight from the week using #MakingItHappen. Of course, we hope this will be your favourite event, but please do use the hashtag for any event that you have attended. And if commenting, remember please to tag us on any posts. So, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Trace-Ann O'Reilly, who will be emceeing our event this morning. Trace-Ann is the founder and managing director of The Forest, which is a web design and brand strategy company that works primarily with small and micro businesses all over Ireland to get them online so they can sell their products and services more effectively. Trace-Ann spent 10 years working in radio, both on air and in developing digital content off air. So she has a great understanding of how social and digital media can be hugely beneficial for businesses of all sizes. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Trace-Ann, and I hope you leave this morning with a lot of information and tips around how best to use social media for your business. Over to you, Trace-Ann.
Jackie, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second annual social media mashup, which is hosted, of course, by the Waterford Local Enterprise Office as part of Enterprise Week. So it's running right across the week and right across the country right up until today. We have a great event planned for you this morning where we're going to be covering not just social media, but website development and e-commerce, content and influencer marketing, social engagement and brand development as well. Our expert panel is made up of a host of local business people, each of whom use social media and digital media in different ways to leverage their brand online and work with clients as well to do the same. So joining us this morning is Dave Manser, MD of Vitamin Creative Limited, journalist Darren Skelton, Amy Orr, the Managing Director of Yumi, content management expert and head of creative solutions at WLR Claire Power, and social media influencer Kirsten Mate-Mar. I'll be chatting to each of our guests over the next hour or so, after which I'll hand you then over to Paul Dower of Waterford in Your Pocket, who will host a Q&A with our panellists on your behalf. Paul has also put together some videos that he'll share with us across the morning with some top tips from each of our panellists that you can take away with you from the event this morning. You've also got a chance to win, as Jackie mentioned, a nice €200 voucher. So any of the events that you took part in across the week this week, share your highlight from Local Enterprise Week on any of your favourite social media platforms. Just make sure it is a public post with the hashtag #MakingItHappen. And that draw will be done then very shortly. If you've got any questions at any stage, if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can pop them in the comment box and we'll keep an eye on those throughout the morning. But you can put your questions then to the panellists in the Q&A session at the end of the event. So Dave Manser, I'm going to come to you first. You're the MD of Vitamin Creative Limited, which is a web and graphic design studio with an incredible portfolio of work to your name. And you're no stranger either to social media. Tell me, it's 2021, we are in the midst of a global pandemic still, and people have never shopped nor traded online as much as they have in the past 12 months. So with that in mind, does a business need a website?
Hi, Trace-Ann, and well, I'd like to just start by saying thanks for inviting me along. It's anyone that knows me would know this isn't the kind of thing I'd normally get involved in, but I have to say it's an interesting and welcome opportunity. So thank you, Trace-Ann, and thank you, Jackie, and the rest of the LEO. I guess to answer your question, yeah, look, I mean, you and I are obviously very involved in the business of web development. So I think we have a very strong understanding of what's the need to have a website. But I guess the pandemic, above everything, has really brought into sharp focus the need to really jump onto what is such a strong sales channel these days, which is online. And really, I guess with the closure of physical premises, websites more than ever have replaced physical sales channels, i.e. showrooms, shops, that kind of the opportunity to sit down in front of customers and put brochures in front of them, that kind of thing is just, it's a non-starter anymore. So you absolutely have to have a website. The thing that sort of really brings it home for me is that, I'm an old school graphic designer. When I started my career back in the late 90s, we were printing brochures, we were printing directories, we were printing all kinds of stuff. And you only have to look at the way the golden pages has gone from that to that over the years. And that kind of tells you all you really need to know. So that to me is the biggest reason why you absolutely have to have a website these days, or you just need to be found and you need to have a good, credible presence online.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different ways to build a website now as well, and so many platforms to do it on. And of course, there are lots of people who are, bravely taking on the DIY route, whether it's WordPress or Squarespace, Shopify or Wix, and even some of the best developers out there are, utilizing these platforms as well to create really great sites for, a variety of clients across a huge amount of industries. What's the difference between all of these different platforms, and what should a business look for when they're choosing a platform or a developer?
The big difference is, as you say, the sort of Wix Squarespace route is stuff that you really could you could build a website without really having to have much in the way of design or technical expertise. Somebody with reasonable IT skills could get together a website, and that's fine, go for it. What we tend to find here is that a lot of our customers would come to us having done that, and they've graduated beyond it. They found themselves limited by that, either through not having the technical expertise to integrate it with a POS system, or just not having the time because the business has grown, or just wanting to get that little bit more of a bespoke, unique kind of look, which I guess is where the likes of ourselves would come in. That you wouldn't be picking from a template with somebody like us. You'd be working with a designer to actually bring you a website that's very much on brand and very unique to yourself. So I guess in a nutshell, the Wix Squarespace, low barrier to entry, but you are very much in a walled garden. That integration down the line can be difficult. And then, in terms of the other content management systems that are out there, there's a whole pile of them. WordPress is by far the most popular, and it's the one that we tend to use the most, just because that's what the market demands. But like anything, it's easy to get it done badly, but it's an investment. And our thing would always be that instead of paying very small money and getting something cheap and cheerful up there, invest in it. You'd invest in a shop if you had a physical shop. You'd put nice lighting in, you'd put nice carpets, nice shelves in, all that kind of stuff. Your website is the same thing. Yeah,
I completely agree. There's certainly a lot of kind of dodgy looking sites out there, but it is. I mean, obviously, as you said, yourself and myself, we do this for a living, so it certainly is. I suppose we understand and appreciate the businesses will kind of take that step and work with an expert for sure. Okay, so what should the relationship be, I suppose, between your website and your social media then? And what are the things that a business should consider when maybe creating content for a website or social media?
I suppose the big thing for me is that you have to make it engaging, and you have to make it credible, and you have to make it interesting. And the devil can sometimes be in the details. I think you and I, Therese-Anne, we're quite pedantic when it comes to grammar, but it's important. I think if you're going to establish a credible relationship with a customer, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So to me, just taking that little bit of care and attention over the content you're putting out there, whether it be the graphics or the language or the grammar or the spelling, just take that little bit of care and attention over it makes all the difference. And then in terms of how social media relates back to your website, to me, it's a funnel. Unless you're set up for shopping on Facebook directly or whatever it is, as you can do, you have to be thinking in terms of getting your customers back to your website, which is where you make your conversion by and large, whether it's sell something or get an inquiry or join our mailing list, whatever you define as a conversion. It happens on your website. So you have to kind of consider, how are you going to get people to click? What's going to engage them? What's going to stop them flicking down their feed on Facebook and get them to click that link through to your website? So that's how I would see the relationship between social and web.
So search engine optimization then, or SEO as it's nicely shortened up to. It's one of those terms, I suppose, that we hear used all the time when it comes to website development and website management. But other than it being this kind of elusive thing that helps you get a good rank on Google, many people aren't really sure what SEO is. What advice could you give a business or business owners to help them improve their SEO on both their websites and their social media accounts?
The big thing for me is research. I think a lot of business owners start with a hypothesis which probably isn't tested that rigorously. So to me, research, find out exactly what your customers are looking for. So there's keyword research tools out there, some free, some paid. Obviously, the likes of yourself and myself, we use the paid tools because we have clients who can cover that. But there are free tools out there. There's stuff like I have a few written down here, which I'll come to later. So do your research first. And then the second tip I guess I'd say is especially if you're in a business that's quite competitive. There are businesses like IT firms, for instance, like Radius Technologies. They're in quite a competitive space. So what we're doing is we're trying to find niches within that. We do that by looking at the keywords that are out there, looking at the density, looking at the cost of those keywords, and seeing where we can slot in around them to try and get a little bit of an advantage and maximize the budget we have. So things like long tail keywords. So instead of where to buy, where to get a cloud server in Waterford, that would be a long tail keyword, which is likely to yield a much better result than cloud servers. So that's the kind of context I'd be looking at. And then in terms of how you maximize that through social media, again, do your research, find out what people are searching for. There's a couple of good tools, again, I'll get to them later, that would help you find what they are. When you found them, be prepared to put a few quid behind boosting them, but do your research first, find out what exactly you are boosting and target it first. It's not difficult to target through Facebook. Target your audience. There's no point in just boosting a post just out to everyone, because you have a very specific audience, and you can use those tools in social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., to target for them. And then the final thing I'd say is just it just comes down to content. So when you do get people back to your website, the content has to be good. It has to be engaging. It has to be well written. Has to have a clearly defined path through it. And you have to be able to guide your viewer through it, to feed them the content they want, and to guide them towards making that conversion. That's what it's really all about for me.
Fantastic. What applications or programs would you recommend for a business owner who's maybe looking to effectively manage and maintain their own website and social media accounts?
Yeah. Well, I think again, coming back to what I was saying about content, there's a couple of nice tools out there for generating and helping you generate content. Canva is the obvious one. If Adobe tools like the Adobe Creative Suite, the industry standard, there's quite a high barrier to entry and quite a cost associated with getting into that. But Canva can be pretty good. It can help you generate some really good assets for social media, and there's nice guided templates there. So that'd be a good place to start. I mean, the one thing I certainly wouldn't recommend anyone would do is just start jumping straight into Microsoft Paint. In fact, you should probably just uninstall that from your PCs altogether. Then there's good tools out there that can help you just sort of manage and schedule what you're posting. Things like Hootsuite, there's one we use here, Agora, that instead of getting caught up in your day-to-day activity and forgetting to post stuff, you can just take an hour or two every week and actually just schedule up some content that'll go out at the right time, so you can hit the right people at the right time. So you can hit people when they're sitting down for the coffee break and they're looking at their phone and stuff like that. There's a couple of tools that can help you with grammar and spelling, things like Hemingway, which you can install as a browser extension. It will just check your grammar as you're typing and just help you out with that. Something I've been playing around with lately is Adobe Spark, which is really good for creating animated video content. Very lightweight, very low barrier to entry. And video content tends to convert a lot better on social. So you'd get about 80% more engagement with video content as you would static image type content. And then there's a couple of nice tools like SEMrush, keyword magic tool that can help you do that bit of keyword research. There's another great tool there, QuestionDB, that scans Reddit, and it'll come up with the top queries around your question that people are searching for on Reddit. So that's a really good way of finding out what your audience is searching for. And finally, Google. Open up a new window, open up Google, start typing in a search term, and it will spit out automatically what it thinks you're looking for based on the most popular terms. So just with a very quick look, you can see what are those terms straight away. And then check out, when you've completed that search, people also ask. Check out what Google is saying, people also ask. So there's a really handy way of just finding out a bit of basic keyword research there.
Excellent, Steve. They're fantastic tips, both in terms of web design, search engine optimization, and everything that goes in between, especially linking it up with your social and leveraging it to have a really strong presence online. Thank you very much. Before we move on, our next panelist will be Darren Skelton, but we'll take a look first of all at some of Dave's top tips for web design. So Darren Skelton is a journalist and stand-up comedian. I'm going to come to you next, Darren. And firstly, before we get on to the more formal chat this morning, you must be itching for live gigs to return and get back on stage. How much are you missing live comedy?
Yeah, a lot. Well, I suppose I did 3 years of it. I did 9 gigs altogether, but the last one was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I had planned to do another one this March, but obviously with COVID, that didn't happen. It's weird. It's tough for a lot of people. Like, you'd be surprised in Waterford, there are people who go every single week to a show or a gig or a live concert. So for them, it's a huge culture shock. I'm kind of semi-glad because I was a bit nervous I'd come back. So it's an excuse now to take an extra break. But look,
exactly. No, I mean, I think it'll be better for us all when any sort of gig of any capacity returns, we can get out and get back to normal life. But on to the topic of the day, and your social media platform, I suppose, of expertise is Twitter primarily. It is arguably the go-to platform for breaking news, sport, real-time updates on current affairs, but can also be a great place for brands and businesses to grow. From your experience, when and how should businesses use it, and what should they expect from Twitter as a platform?
Well, first of all, what they can expect, what they can't expect, is overnight success. I think Twitter requires a little bit of patience. It can be frustrating for people because they join up Twitter and they expect to be speaking to a lot of people at once, but it just takes a while to get a following. What I always say to people is Facebook is for talking to people. Twitter is for kind of walking amongst them. And it's a great advantage if you've got a business, for example, no matter what you're selling, whether it's windows or doors or perfume or anything, it's great to get to walk amongst your customers and just kind of find out what they're talking about, engage with them, and kind of wait for your opportunity to get your business out there. So for that regard, it's a little bit tougher than the likes of Facebook and obviously LinkedIn and Instagram, because it requires a bit of a build-up of a following, and so you're entering a community, and it's like anything else. People are not going to know you straight away. You have to get to know you, but once they do get to know you, once you build a following, it's a huge advantage for your business. It just takes a while to get that following together. I'd always said people persist because it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, Twitter has gotten a bad rap as well for being, so full of fake news. How do you know when you're reading real or fake news? And what are the signs to look out for?
Well, there's a few things. First of all, what I would say to people is, follow a lot of trustworthy individuals, first of all. If a lot of people, a huge amount of people joined Twitter this last year for COVID-related news. And kind of while they're there, they kind of dip their toes into other areas. But start off by just building a following that you trust. When it comes to fake news, if you see something that you don't think could be true or you have doubts about it, just search Google for it. So if there's an article that says, Paul Dower wants to become a woman, then maybe Google it, because if it's going to be in other places, it's going to be in other news services first. So if you see a news outlet called World News International and it has this outstanding claim, just Google it. If they're the only ones that have it, there's a good chance that it's fake news. It's Twitter. It can be a little bit intimidating at the start because you're seeing all of these tweets come up on your feed and you can't really get in edgeways. But honestly, like, I started Twitter in 2009. I joined up, and it's taken 12 years almost, and I'm only at about 8,000 followers, but it's a good core following. And if I'm kind of advertising a business interest, like for example, someone could be saying, the doors after breaking this morning, and then suddenly someone replies and tags someone who fixes doors. So as I said to you, you have to be patient. You're walking amongst the people. So if you're selling too much, if you're constantly putting up stuff about, buy my windows, buy my glasses, buy my whatever, people will get bored and they're not going to follow you. So Twitter is not a good place to go if you just want to sell.
It sounds like it's a great platform to build, maybe brand advocacy and a great brand community, as you said, as opposed to using it as a sales channel. It's instead a place to build a loyal customer base. So yeah, they're really, really great tips. What are your tips for tweeting then in general, as opposed to just using the platform? And are there kind of any hard and fast rules maybe when you're writing that tweet?
Yeah, well, I suppose the first and foremost, the thing to remember when you're on Twitter is that this is a very important and a rare opportunity for you to get the personality of the business out there. So no matter what business you're in, whether you're selling cars or you're fixing websites and stuff, people rarely get a chance to actually find out the person behind the company. And if you're tweeting and, you don't have to be tweeting all the time about what you know. You could be watching the Late Late Show one night and you're tweeting with other people and you're commenting on the guests and whatever it is. And suddenly people start to go, this is a nice person. So I think the golden rule is be nice, be polite, engage with people. There are some people who join Twitter and they have massive egos and they get maybe a following of 4,000 or 5,000 people and they follow nobody in return. I mean, that's not going to get you anywhere, because let's face it, you're not Conor McGregor, you're out there and you're trying to get your name out there. So my advice would be engaging with people, be polite, be friendly. And your opportunity will come where people will ask you about your business or you'll get an opportunity to, but really, and also post fairly regularly, tweet fairly, if you're sitting down of an evening after you've had a tough day, open Twitter and follow news and engage with people. And if someone says something that's interesting to you, thank them. Don't just be somebody who watches everything all the time, because you're never going to move from your 4 or 5 followers if that's the case, I just think when it comes to Twitter, don't be afraid of it. Open it, choose who you want to follow. If someone's annoying you, you don't have to follow them, or you can block them if you want. But the more that you tweet and the more that you get involved in the community, I mean, last year during COVID, there was a great kind of a hashtag trend started in Waterford called We're in Waterford. And all people were doing, they were taking photographs of places around Waterford, they were tagging with the hashtag We're in Waterford, and there's a pile on people trying, that's down there by Lady Lane and stuff. But what developed was a huge community of people who got to know one another. And it was actually, it was a networking that I know has led to people selling their products and, selling their services and stuff. So it's just, if you have the patience the first step is be part of the community. And then anything after that is a bonus. I saw one this morning. It was great. Jennifer O'Connell tweeted about collect bin lorry that had missed their bin, or she forgot to put her bin out, and she said that they came back and it was great. And suddenly there was a lot of people kind of going, that was brilliant service. And Collect themselves replied, which was great, because imagine if Collect didn't really monitor their Twitter account and didn't see that, then it's an opportunity missed. So it's like just with any other business, try and get involved in as many channels as possible. That'll be my advice, and be nice.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it's great advice as well to take it slow and I suppose understand you're never going to have overnight success on any social media platform, but Twitter in particular for sure. Some Twitter users and some of the biggest brands on Twitter, as you mentioned there, they use it multiple times per day and they give off the impression that, they're always on the platform, but that might not be sustainable for a small business or maybe a business with limited time resources. Are there any apps or, any apps that you use maybe, or that you would recommend that business owners use to manage their Twitter account? Or is it a case of you kind of just have to keep your eye on the ball all the time?
Like with everything else, there are apps out there. I know when I started out first, there was TweetDeck and different things where you could monitor all your social media channels at once. I think that can become a little bit overwhelming. I'm actually one of these people who hates to see notifications on my phone. You know, I don't want the phone to tell me when to look at Facebook or when to look at Twitter. So when I have a moment, I'll open up Twitter and I'll go into notifications and I'll check what's been said. And that suits me. And I think it'd probably suit other people too, because I know I've been in meetings with people before and their phone is just flashing up with text messages, WhatsApps, Twitter messages. And I go, how are you doing that? So I don't know, there are probably services out there, Trezan, but I'm more of the belief that you should go there when you need to go there. Check in on it a couple of times a day so you don't miss anything important. But I mean, if you don't reply to something for a couple of hours, nobody's going to hold it against you, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a nice excuse maybe as well, just to kind of take a step away from the desk and the computer and, you know, go have a little wander outside, browse on the phone, answer your few tweets and head back inside. So yeah, it's a good excuse to take a little break from the norm. Darren, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our third panelist for the morning, Amy Orr, in just a moment. But first of all, we'll have a look at Darren's top tips for tweeting before we do. Great advice from Darren Skelton there. Amy, I'm going to come to you now. Amy Orr, the Managing Director of Yumi. Amy, firstly, congratulations on the success of Yumi to date. It is one of the newer businesses to be featured as part of the event this morning. For anyone who's not familiar with the business, Yumi is a retail business based in Waterford that focuses on selling plastic-free alternatives to your everyday household and lifestyle items, with a shop on the quay in Waterford City and a great online store on yumi.ie as well. So Amy, traditionally, a business would start in a bricks and mortar store and then progress to selling online, but you did it the other way around. Talk me through that journey and how it all started.
Yeah, we did. The main reason being budget. It was a lot more cost efficient for us to build a website than to invest in fitting out a shop. But it actually worked to our advantage in the end, because by the time it came around to, you know, working towards building the shop and getting a shop set up, we already had a bit of an online presence. So we had like a year of an online presence, and we had a regular customer base built, which was great. So, yeah, sorry.
No, that's perfect. It's great to know, because, you know, I imagine there's a lot of people out there who have a business idea or maybe have products that they want to sell, whether it's in store or online. So I think it's really good for businesses to know that you can actually start online before you progress to an in-store business. And it is a cost-efficient way of doing it as well. But if anyone has that kind of plan, you know, what are the things that they need to consider, and how should they go about getting their business started?
One of the main things, as Dave mentioned some really good tips there. So your website, if you're selling online, your website is essentially, it's your shop, right? So in the same way that you would invest in, you know, fitting out a shop, you know, designing the layout and the look of the shop and how you want it to, you know, work when customers come in, it's the same with your website. So making it as user-friendly as possible. Definitely invest in a good web designer. Your website is going to be the main thing for you at this moment. So it has to be user-friendly, it has to be clear. So it's not just about the content of it, it's how people can get around it and how they can find stuff. So limiting content to maybe like a blog section, as opposed to just having a lot of text on your homepage. You know, keep it clear and concise. If before you have a website, there are other options like this Facebook Marketplace, which is great, and you can integrate that with Instagram, which is, it's completely free. You just have to set up a Facebook business page. And you know, like that's free and it's great, and you can pay for advertising through that as well. and that works across both platforms. So that's an inexpensive option for people who want to start selling online. Yeah, there's so many options out there. But one of the things I would recommend is invest in your website. Find someone. Pinterest is great for inspiration on how you want your website to look and the layout of it and all that. Make sure you have a good web designer and a graphic designer. Definitely work on your logo and your branding. Take your time with it. There's no rush, because this is like what people are going to see. People are going to see your logo and they're going to get to know your logo. So make sure that you invest time and money into getting that right.
Yeah, certainly a strong visual identity can certainly be the difference between a brand that people really engage with, instantly, and one that maybe they kind of gloss over and don't recognize as instantly as they should. How have e-commerce and social media opened up opportunities for you, Amy?
Gosh, they've just it's getting to know people, getting to talk to people. Like Darren said, you get to build up a customer base and chat with your customers, and you get to know them online. And you do build up friendships through that as well. So that it's worked really well for us since opening the shop, because we're finally able to put faces to the names of the people that I've spoken to online over the last 2 years. And it's the same with the markets. So it's worked really well for that, just getting to know people, getting to know your customer base, getting to hear their stories, getting inspiration from your customers on the kind of products that they're looking for. Yeah, it's helped a lot. I've grown a lot. It's definitely helped me to grow my business in terms of sourcing products that people like, and that people want and that people are looking for. So it's made my life easier, definitely.
That's good. It's good to hear. So you launched your e-commerce website. You're set up to sell online, but sales don't just magically happen, as we all know. What role does social media play in driving traffic and sales and in increasing brand awareness as well, as you mentioned? And would Yumi be a success without social media?
I think any business would struggle without social media nowadays. Yumi definitely probably wouldn't be as much of a success as it would be now, as it is now, without social media, because it's a lot easier for word of mouth to get around through social media. It spreads like wildfire. So in terms of that way, it's great for small businesses starting out. It's just so easy. But obviously, like anything, it requires a lot of work as well. So, and a lot of interaction. So, yeah, I don't know if that.
No, that's perfect. It's so good to hear your really fresh and honest answers, because I think when you're especially in the new stages of running a business and establishing a brand as well, it's so much of a learning curve, and it really is. There's a lot to be kind of learned in such a short space of time, and it's just, I think it's incredible to watch your business grow and to see how it's already become such a success in such a short space of time. What platforms do you work with then, and what do you kind of find best in terms of social media platforms? Do you have to use a lot of different social media platforms to be a success online, or can you focus on just a few core, one or two mediums?
It's a matter of preference, really. I mean, if you have the time to manage it, with me, it's time. I've got 2 small kids and a business to run, so I don't have the time to do Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, I am on those platforms, but I just don't have the time to monitor them. I work mainly with Instagram and Facebook. I'm not on Facebook an awful lot because Instagram integrates with Facebook. So if I post to Instagram, it automatically posts to Facebook. And I mainly just use Facebook for interacting and answering questions and comments and messages and stuff like that. And my Facebook marketplace. So but that's integrated with Instagram. I spend most of my time on Instagram, to be honest. Instagram stories are a relatively easy way of showing your customers your products. They're extremely effective. I'd say about 80% of my social would come from Instagram. My social conversions on my website would come from Instagram, from my Instagram stories, which is huge. So Instagram is a major platform for me. I think LinkedIn is great for certain types of businesses, and the same with Twitter. But if you don't have the time to be on every platform, you don't have to be on every platform. Like, pick one, you know, try and focus on that as much as you can and build up a following on that and that one.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us this morning. And hello to your little one there who's joining us this morning. Lovely to see their face. So we're going to move on to our next panelist in just a moment, Claire Power. First of all, though, I want to remind you about the competition that we've got running this morning, which is a chance for you to win a €200 voucher. All you need to do is simply share your favorite moment from Local Enterprise Week, from any of the events that maybe you took part in across the week this week, and tagging Waterford at Waterford LEO, and use the hashtag Making It Happen as well. And of course, we'd love you to get involved with us online this morning as well. Like that, you know, take a snap of yourself if you're sitting at home watching, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. Take a screenshot of the device you're watching it on and share that online. And again, you will go into the draw with a chance to win that €200 voucher. Again, all thanks to the Waterford Local Enterprise Office. So that hashtag is Making It Happen. A reminder as well, if you've got any questions for any of our panelists across the morning, just pop them in the comments on either Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get those to our panelists a little bit later on. We hand over to Paul Dower of Waterford in Your Pocket for our Q&A later on. So before we hand over to Claire Power, we are going to take a look at Amy Orr's top tips for setting up e-commerce. So Claire Power, I'm going to come to you next. There are a few people in the country, never mind the county, I think, who single-handedly strategize, produce and publish more online content than you do. So it's a real pleasure to have you here with us this morning. We hear the terms online content and social media content all the time, but what is content?
Yeah, thank you for that lovely introduction, Traizanne. Yeah, I suppose, look, content is anything that people consume. So I suppose what we're doing right now is content, people are consuming it, like in the traditional media sense, like WLR, radio stations, newspapers, that is traditional media, that is the content that people have been consuming for years. And I suppose now it's just kind of repurposed differently. So it's like your social media content, your website content, whatever you're putting up online. And I suppose like it's eye-catching content, graphics, videos, blog posts, quizzes, anything like that. And I suppose it's just the important thing is knowing the content that attracts your customers or potential customers as well.
And content creator as well. It's another term and kind of a nouveau job description that's gaining mass over the last number of years. But what is a content creator and what role do they play in business development?
Yeah, I suppose at the risk of sounding smart, a content creator is someone that create content. Again, back to the traditional media, like WLR's content is, our content creators are on-air presenters. They're the people that produce the ads. They're also the likes of me who produces the videos, the graphics, the blog posts. So I suppose a content creator is anyone that speaks, that shoots video, that takes photographs, that creates blog posts and stuff like that. And I suppose in the modern sense, then it is all that content that goes up online that pushes your business. And with regards to business development, I suppose the content creators are the one that puts your business out there. The content on your social media, on your website, that is the first thing that your followers see. So kind of suppose like Amy was saying, the likes, you know, when you don't have that bricks and mortar store, that is, and especially suppose within the current climate, when you can't go into stores and you can't see what you can purchase in an actual physical shop, the content that you produce. is online is what people sell, or what you can sell and what people can consume. So it's a first impression that anyone will have as your business. Basically, it's like your online shop front. So I suppose it's important that it's on brand for what you want and that it attracts the kind of customers that you want to attract as well.
And the right type of content can be a really powerful marketing tool for any business trying to build their brand and build their brand awareness. But how can small businesses use content marketing then to drive business and sales?
Yeah, so I suppose, as I said, it is your shop front. If the main thing is to drive traffic to your website, if you want to sell a particular product, you push your products on it. Obviously, it should be interesting surrounding products, but it doesn't have to be like pushy, sell, buy this product. It can be, creating blog posts and quizzes and stuff that, kind of like tie in your products. I suppose what your goal is, if your goal is to sell, that's exactly what you want people to do, is push people back to your products. It doesn't, as I said, doesn't have to be really obvious. If your goal is to be an influencer, it's the kind of content that you want to push there. You have to kind of put yourself in your followers' shoes as well. And imagine what you would want to see. And graphics are huge. Obviously, I think everyone knows video is huge at the minute. I read a stat the other day that 84% of people have purchased a product based on a video from a brand that they've seen. So I think like graphics and videos are definitely the way to go. I suppose then the main thing is to drive this traffic back to your website as well, and start small and consistent, and then kind of build it from there as well.
Yeah, great advice. Are there any kind of hard and fast rules when it comes to creating good content? Is there anything that you in particular kind of abide by?
Yeah, well, I suppose the obvious thing would be making it look nice, making it look visually appealing. But there's so much more work that goes on in the background as well. And I know Dave touched on SEO earlier. So SEO is search engine optimization. And it's basically where your website ranks on Google or on search engines. So as I said, you can put all this work into making it look nice, but if all that work isn't done in the background, so basically how to kind of get yourself ranked high on Google, the likes of, optimizing your images, making sure your images are sized properly for your website, making sure that they're, titled correctly, stuff like that, making sure that you've like tags on your blog post so that if someone searches a topic that your website should appear. That's a whole other different topic in itself, but I suppose, yeah, they are the kind of smaller things that, you're putting all this effort into producing this great content, but if the background work isn't done, it's not really going to appear. But yeah, it's making it look nice. It's content that's relevant, that's fresh, that's clean, that's topical as well.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think even what you said there as well about it being, crisp and clear images and good quality, and they don't have to be professional. I mean, a good smartphone can take a great image so long as you've got a steady hand and good lighting. There's a lot can be done. So they're great tips. What's the role then of social media in content marketing?
Well, social media is obviously a game changer when it comes to pushing your content. And I kind of said that like I remember a time without even social media. But I mean, as I said, it's putting your content out there. And again, it's what your goals are. If you're trying to push a certain product, there are ways that, don't just shove the product out there, as I said before, creating blog posts and stuff like that and pushing them out on social media. But it's important to completely take advantage of it, make sure it's engaging. If you're doing it, make sure it looks right, I suppose, especially on social media, like Instagram. Say if you're doing an Instagram story, make sure it's in portrait and not landscape, if you're putting an image up on your website, make sure it looks like okay and all in proportion when it transfers across to Facebook. I suppose also, and I know Darren touched on this as well, social media, it's all about building a conversation around your brand. So apart from trying to, get the bread and butter, it's to sell your products, grand, but you also want to engage people. If there's a conversation out there about you, you definitely want to be in on it, whether it's positive, hopefully it is positive. You definitely want to engage with those people that are talking about you and hopefully, turn them into customers. And I also mentioned this in one of my top tips that you'll see, but like user generated content is so important as well at the minute. So this is basically the content that your users are creating for you. So like the likes at the minute, like, you know, a few accounts that I manage for, or say, restaurant, the restaurants aren't open at the minute. You know, the people aren't in restaurants taking pictures of their food. So the chefs don't have time to do it either. So anytime that people are creating content for you, you need to push that out there. So obviously I can't go in and take a picture of the meals that they're creating because of the guidelines. So anything that people put up on their own social media, pictures of their food, it's gathering that content. You know, you can repurpose it in whatever way you want. You can put it into blog posts, you can share it in your stories, you can create graphics, but definitely take advantage of the stuff that your users and your followers are creating for you as well.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, actually. So user generated content. So basically anything that your followers are creating on your behalf. That's a really good tip. Are there any platforms that you feel perform maybe more strongly than others, or kind of does it depend on the industry that you're in?
I suppose, like, for us anyway, in WLR, the main one for us is kind of Facebook. It's where we push our news and sport and videos and that. But it was a big one that I would recommend everyone to be on, and I think most people are on at the minute, is Instagram. It's so dynamic. I mean, you have obviously your regular feed with your posts, you have your Instagram stories, you have Instagram reels, you can go live, you have IGTV. I would definitely recommend that. I suppose, yeah, the three main ones that we would use in WLR, and I would use for any of my other clients, are Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And like, I suppose it's important to remember as well that you don't have to be on every single one. Like, you need to be on the ones where the followers you want are on. So obviously, you know, if you're kind of looking for younger demographic, maybe TikTok is the way to go. LinkedIn might not necessarily be the place where, you know, you should be if that's not the kind of audience you're trying to attract. So I think definitely focus on the ones that you are on rather than kind of trying to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, no, great advice, because it can certainly be a bit overwhelming and maybe a bit intimidating when there's, you know, so many platforms out there, and, you know, TikTok is the social media platform that everyone's buzzing about during the pandemic. But as you said, if your audience isn't there, you know, there's probably no point in creating content for that platform. Claire, thank you so much. There's so many amazing tips there. And before we move on to our final panelist this morning, Kirsten Maté-Mar, we are going to take a look at Claire's top tips for creating great content. So our final panelist this morning is Kirsten Maté-Mar, who's best known as the 2018 Waterford Rose and Rose of Tralee. She is currently studying digital marketing to further her knowledge in the area and is working almost full-time at this stage as a social media influencer. Thanks a million for joining us this morning, Kirsten.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. No, it's brilliant to have you. So first of all, tell us, you know, what is an influencer and what is influencer marketing?
Sorry, my connection just went there. Am I back?
The joys of a digital event. No problem at all. So I'll just repeat the question. Tell us first of all, what is an influencer and what is influencer marketing?
So an influencer, I suppose, is someone who has the ability to affect people's purchasing decisions. That's what I would kind of describe it as. I suppose their followers. So it would be somebody who's quite similar to them. So I suppose my followers would be, I suppose my age group is between 25 and 35, 86% of that are women. So I would kind of be appealing to, you know, anything that people within that age gap would be interested in. And then, what was the other question? Sorry,
just what is influencer marketing? I suppose that it's kind of, the question is almost one and the same.
Yeah, it is. And you know what, I suppose businesses really should be taking the opportunity to ride on the coattails of these influencers, because they're becoming more and more important compared to celebrities. I mean, I was looking at the Digital Marketing Institute last night, and it says that actually 86% of women use social media for purchasing advice, and 70% of teens trust influencers before celebrities, which is a big statistic, because I suppose that generation is eventually, celebrities are kind of getting pushed out and influencers are on the way up, and they're actually something that we all have some kind of access to. No matter how big or small your business is, there's an influencer there in the market that will suit your brand and business. And I suppose smaller businesses might think that influencer marketing isn't for them, but it probably is. And there's probably someone out there who will suit your brand and represent your brand really well, and then help you, I suppose, create more brand awareness and improve your trust with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually that's a really good point there that we're making about, you know, influencers are the new, when I say the new celebrities, in the sense they're the new celebrities in terms of the influence that they have on, you know, the general public's purchasing decisions, because, you know, influencers are people like you who are people like us. Okay, but it's people that, you know, it's people who, you know, who walk amongst us and, you know, shop in the same places that we shop and wear the same clothes that we wear, which is, it's something very attainable, which I think is maybe something that celebrities don't necessarily offer. So it's a great opportunity, as you said, yeah, for brands to kind of ride on those coattails for sure. So just talk me through those benefits to brands of working with influencers. You know, is it only the big brands really who work with social media influencers, or, you know, are there opportunities for smaller brands to work with the likes of yourselves as well?
100%. I mean, you're going to increase your brand awareness, obviously. So even if you send out some, for instance, you'll see a lot of people gifting influencers products, letting them try their products, kind of testing the waters to see like what they think of it. Now, as an influencer, I do get sent products. I don't always share them all, mainly because sometimes I just don't like the product and I just don't think it would be worth sharing with my followers. I wouldn't want to lead them down the wrong road of buying something that's absolutely terrible when, you know, so yeah, I suppose when you have an influencer that is honest and kind of, transparent, you're kind of building a trust with their customers. So, you know, I would like to think that when I speak about a makeup product or when I speak about an item of clothing or a brand, that my followers can think, okay, well, she wouldn't lead us in the wrong direction. So you're gaining that trust from their followers. They're instantly going to trust you because they trust me. And I suppose it works really well, but there has to be that kind of, that trust has to be there with your influencer. So you do have to be careful with who you work with. Some people will kind of take any opportunity. I mean, for instance, I actually got a proposal recently from a makeup brand, and they were going to send me a year's worth of eyelashes. And obviously you're like, oh, wow, that's a lot or whatever. But when I looked into it, it actually turns out they use real mink. And it's, look, the lashes are like €20 each. I could have probably got a lot of free product, but it just wasn't worth it for me. It would, I suppose, it's just not what I believe in and what I would like to kind of promote. So you need to be sure that the influencer that you choose to work with, and they don't necessarily have to have 10,000 followers. An influencer is anybody. It can be your employees. If you're, you know, working in a small shop and you have employees, you know, they are your influencers as well. And it's important to use them and you know, give them discount codes. And I suppose the use of discount codes is a huge thing. I think they're really effective. Myself, you can give a discount code to an influencer if, you know, they use your products or you see them using your products. You can give them a discount code, and I suppose it gives people that little incentive to buy, and that they're, you know, getting something out of following you. Then I suppose it helps you reach your target audience. So ideally then you want to choose an influencer who is ideally your perfect customer, somebody who, you know, you would ideally see walk into your shop or buy your products or use your products, because their followers are going to also probably be of the same kind of category. So that's a really important point, actually. And I would like to stress that, because if your influencer might have 30,000 followers, but if, you know, it's like getting Paul Dare to promote a makeup brand. He's just not, you know, it's not the target, it's not his target audience. So it would be pretty useless. Whereas if we got you, Trezan, to speak about a makeup brand, it would be probably more effective, because you're very beautiful. You always have your makeup done really well. So I think like that would suit you more than it would Paul.
I'm blushing, and Paul is looking absolutely beautiful off camera here. Our lovely viewers can't see him at the moment, but they will get a gorgeous look at him later. And I believe the lipstick and the blusher that he's wearing this morning is well, yeah, there he is, gorgeous, looking beautiful this morning. But Chris, I think that's a really, really good tip to say that, you know, find an influencer who is essentially your ideal customer. I think that's a really good takeaway point from what you were telling us there. Instagram as well, it seems to be kind of the influencer's platform of choice. Why do you think that is? And can influencers be as influential on other platforms like Facebook or TikTok?
Yeah, I think they can. I've noticed a lot of people that I know, like James Patrice. I don't know if you know James Patrice. He's a Dublin-based influencer and presenter. He's brilliant. I've noticed that he's kind of gone towards Facebook as well, but his main platform is Instagram. But I do see people trying to break into these other platforms because there's a trend where Instagram seems to be going down the route of, I don't know how to describe it. Facebook and Instagram are the same thing, and there will never not be a Facebook, but Instagram is slowly changing. Facebook is the only thing, I suppose, that has remained kind of the same, whereas Instagram's starting to evolve and change. And we've seen a lot of big changes with Instagram, and I think it kind of makes it a little bit, although it's amazing, it's a little bit, what's the word? I can't think of the word for it, but I just think that we need to build a good base on the likes of Facebook and Twitter and those kind of platforms, and then use Instagram and kind of be aware that there might be a time where we don't have Instagram the way that we know it anymore. And yeah, I just think it's interesting. I mean, they're really gone down the route of Reels. Video content is becoming more I don't know what the word is. I can't think. I suppose I don't want to say it's more effective or engaging, but it is extremely engaging in terms of, you know, you get a lot more kind of bang for your buck when watching a video as a viewer than just looking at a static image. So I can understand that. And even as you were saying, you know, Instagram is becoming so diversified in its offering, because it's kind of, you know, it adopted Instagram stories, first of all, which was essentially Snapchat on the Instagram platform. Then it took Reels, which was essentially TikTok on the Instagram platform. You know, I wonder next, are they going to introduce a microblogging, you know, which would be Twitter on the Instagram platform? So it seems to be, you know, evolving all the time, but at the same time, it's really just copying its competitors and creating, you know, the same format, but on their platform. Exactly. And I just think that with your Facebook, I just don't think if you have an Instagram, you need to have a Facebook. Sometimes I just feel like it's a little bit more trustworthy. You know, it's always kind of going to be there. Whereas with Instagram, it's just something that's, again, I don't know what is down on the cards for Instagram at the moment. The algorithms are impossible to crack, and people are getting a little bit sick of it. You know, how many times have you put up a post and it has 0 engagement and your followers haven't seen it? Whereas that's not as likely to happen on Facebook or TikTok or these other platforms. So I suppose it is important to have more than one social media platform, not to get yourself overwhelmed, but just maybe one or something other than Instagram, because you're not going to get your full reach. I mean, they really do push boosting posts, and I suppose you're paying a lot, whereas Instagram or Facebook and TikTok are not as bad. I mean, I see my friends' posts when I look at my Facebook, but I wouldn't necessarily see them when I look at Instagram. I have to go.
Yeah, good point. Do you ever get approached by brands? I mean, and you did kind of touch on this earlier, but do you ever get approached by brands that you don't want to work with at all? And do you have control over the content that you can create with the brands that you do want to work with?
Yeah, I actually do. And recently enough, I was actually contacted by a brand. It's kind of like a health and fitness, protein powders and all that kind of thing. And I feel like I just didn't want to do it. And to be honest, I already work with an amazing brand called Go Health. I'm an ambassador for them. That's a tongue twister. And I just felt like it might be a little bit of conflict of interest. There was probably no reason why I couldn't take the opportunity. It's just, I felt like it's not something that I particularly wanted to promote. I use all protein powders and stuff, but I think it's more of my personal thing. I like to buy them. I have my particular brands that I like to go between. And I do chat about them online, but I do buy them myself. And the last thing I want is for, I suppose, something that I enjoy so much, like fitness and sports, to be kind of a hashtag spawn kind of a situation. I want to keep that to myself. So yeah, I do get approached by brands I don't want to work with, and I'm usually quite honest. It just doesn't suit me at this particular time. I'll let you know if I change my mind or whatever, or don't be afraid to contact me again in the future. It might be different, but yeah, that does happen, and I don't feel bad about it anymore. I used to feel terrible, but I have to stay true to my own brand as well, and to the followers that I have. And then for content creation, I worked with brands directly, also worked with PR companies. Both of them have the same approach of, they'll give you a brief of, like, I suppose, their main points that they would like to get across, but you can word it whatever way you want. I write all my own captions. I know there is this big blow up on the internet of, like, influencers don't write their own captions. There is influencers out there that don't write their own captions, but I prefer to do it myself. Usually when I do a makeup, sponsored makeup post or anything, I'm using the products for months in advance. And thankfully enough, I've actually only worked with brands that I've been using over the last, 10 years. So Essence actually was my first foundation, and I had a collaboration with them in the last couple of months. So I think it's important that when you're approaching, and when you're a small business, and if you are approaching an influencer and you want to kind of see if they want to work with you, or if you want to send them out some products, one thing that I find really handy and really nice is when they approach you on the social media platform that they would like, the post to go out on. So I would initially kind of get an email or a text that would say, "Hi, we're so and so. This is a little bit about our brand. We'd like to send you through a proposal. Do you have an email, or do you have an agency that we can go through?" And I myself do my own kind of social media stuff, so I usually pop them through my email. If I'm not interested, then that's kind of when I can happily say, "Hi, sorry, this doesn't suit my brand or my kind of audience, so I'd like to give it a miss," or whatever. So also, the first thing I do when I do receive an email is check out their social media. So I'll check if they have a website, I'll check if they have Facebook, I'll check across all their social media accounts. I'll trawl through for a good few minutes to see, is this something that represents not only myself, but will I be able to represent them well? So you have to do your research, I suppose, in that sense, because the last thing you want is to choose an influencer. Say if you're a brand that promotes, I don't know, what would be, if you're a brand that promotes healthy eating, and then you have a person, you choose an influencer who has put up an awful post about, fat shaming someone. The last thing you want is, to have that person represent your brand when you're trying to come across as a well-being brand, and then you've picked somebody who doesn't represent that properly, and it doesn't translate well to followers either. It annoys them. So but the last thing we want to do is annoy people.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's funny, I mean, social media users, as we know, are certainly easily annoyed, and they are going to be the first to feed through. It is very easy to kind of feed through, I suppose, when the content isn't genuine, and especially, as you said, if the brand values aren't very transparent as well. So no, they're really good points. one kind of very quick final question. You could just give me like a kind of, I suppose, a quick fire answer to this. But the apps that you use to create your content, because I know that this is something that anybody, any business person who puts, content on social media, what apps should they use to, maybe put graphics or videos or, great kind of static images together?
Yeah, so as Dave said, Canva is great. It's really quick. I love it personally. I mean, I'd love to be a good graphic designer, but I'm really just not. That's really quick. And then for videos, I don't actually edit any of my videos. So TikToks, IGTVs, anything. I don't actually edit them in app. I edit them on Splice. And that way then I can save them and use that content across all platforms. So it's not just limited to the one platform that I use it on. So I save them in HD format. I find when I put up an Instagram post, like a reel, if I save it, it kind of downs the, what's the word?
The quality of the post.
Yeah, the quality of it. So I just use the one thing. So Splice is kind of my go-to. I get the upgraded version. It's not expensive. It's actually, it's very, very affordable. If you're a business, I think it's something that you should have if you are using video content. And then for photo editing, I use an app called Tezza, Tezza. Really just like it. I just like the, what are they called? Filters. They're aesthetically pleasing for my grid on Instagram. I don't necessarily use filters all that much. I might brighten things. I like it has really good HSL, just basically brightening the colors and stuff like that. It's really handy. And yeah, that's kind of it. And they're quite simple to use. I don't like to use anything too fancy. If I discover anything fancy, I'll let you know. But can I just say one thing before I go? Last year I did a local business kind of a highlight on my story, and basically I just put a little call out for any small businesses in Waterford or just in Ireland, local businesses, that if they want to send me like a video, a short video on how they kind of about their business, what they do, I can pop it up on my stories, and I add it to a highlight that's on my page called local business. So if you go onto my Instagram, you'll see the highlight there of like past businesses that have done it. And it basically just gives, I just kind of wanted to do it because of lockdown. Obviously people are building websites and putting a lot of money into now making their products available online. And I just wanted to be able to help them give a little push and increase their brand awareness to my followers. It mightn't necessarily suit my following, that doesn't matter. I can add swipe up links and all that crack as well. So just to send people to your website or to your page. So if anybody's watching and would like to do that, just drop me a message, or you can just send me the videos. If you look at my page, you'll see the sample videos of what people have done, and you can just create your own and just send it on to me and I'll fire it up.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Kirsten, thank you so much. That's a great offer. And that's a really great opportunity, as you said, for any small business owners who are watching this morning, whether Waterford based or otherwise.
Yeah.
So Kirsten Matthew, our social media influencer, thank you so much. Before we head over to Paul Dara for our Q&A this morning, we'll take a look at Kirsten's top tips for Instagram and influencer marketing. Massive thanks to Paul Dara for putting together those videos for us this morning, which is a nice way of just kind of wrapping up and summarising the tips that were shared with us by the experts this morning. So that wraps up our panel discussion. I know we have loads of questions for our panellists, and you can keep them coming in as well over the next while. Pop them into the comment box on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll definitely try and pose them to our experts now over the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to hand you over to Paul Dara now of Waterford in Your Pocket, who'll be your voice to the panellists and find out all of their social media secrets in our social media mashup Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks, Trace-Ann. I have to say, I enjoyed each and every one of the participants today, and thank you very much to all the panelists. well done. And it just goes to show the amount of information that's out there, the amount of expertise that's out there. And I suppose when they all come together in one place like we are this morning, the amount of tips and information that's there is just mind-blowing. So thank you to each and every one of you. There are a few questions that came in, and I suppose we're going to kick it off. Joe Griffin sent in a question, and he said, if any of the e-commerce owners here segment their audience in terms of age, he's wondering if they see any increase in the customers from the age of 65 plus since the pandemic. So I suppose I'll throw that out to Amy.
Yeah, I have. So from the ages of 45 plus, I've seen much bigger engagement. And also on the opposite side, so I've seen like a lot of younger ages as well. Like my main audience would be in and around from anything from 18 to like mid 40s. So it's nice to see like the younger and the older coming in as well and gaining more interest in sustainability and all things, yeah, local and supporting local business. And
yeah, and I suppose like it's one of those as well, people now have more time on their hands since lockdown. So people are venturing into areas that they never even considered before, like pushing the factory recycling and living or thinking about environmental projects and things. And I suppose that's what you stand for. I mean, from the back of that though, when you, if you're running Facebook ads or Instagram ads, do you target the younger groups or do you target an age specific group?
No, not really. With my content, like...
So it's organic.
I try and not stick to one age bracket because I think like climate change and sustainability, it affects all of us, all ages. So no, I don't. I mean, I could obviously reach more people if I stick to a certain group or a certain age bracket, but I just, no, I don't really do that because the more ages and the more people that see it, the more it'll get shared, I suppose.
Very true.
My age bracket might buy more, but they mightn't necessarily share as much. So no, I try not to limit.
And there's another one in here specifically for you, Amy, from Social Cycling Tours. And they're wondering how much time do you allot to your social media management each week?
It depends. Since the last lockdown, it's been tough to try and put some time aside with the kids home and homeschooling and all the rest. But my little boy's been back to school since Monday, so I've had a lot more time now. But before, I used to take a couple of hours in the mornings just to plan my posts and stuff like that. If I know that I don't have time to plan to post on my Instagram grid or Facebook, I'll try and interact with my stories instead, because it's a lot faster. It's instant. I could just put them up straight away. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be edited. So that's an option as well. So I am hoping to get back into planning my social media, but usually 1 or 2 hours in the mornings if I can, because evening times I just don't have the headspace or I'm too tired. Mornings are great. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to get back into that habit.
Excellent. And I'm always saying to any of my clients as well, when they're talking about time and they're wondering about creativity and where am I going to find the time to do all these things. And I mean, time is the one finite thing that we all have. And if we spend all our time on social media, unless you are just purely on social media, that means you don't have time to do the rest of the things in your business. So what I always say to people is if they're thinking about blog or post ideas or whatever else, you can break it down so easily. So for example, there's 12 months, there's 52 weeks, there's 4 seasons, and then there's events during the year. So if you take Christmas, you start there in November. From November after Christmas, then you have the Christmas sales. Then after that, you're going up to Valentine's Day. Then you have St. Patrick's Day. Then you have Easter, and midterm breaks in between. Then you have the schools finishing. You have summer holidays. Then it's back to school. And then after that, then you're coming up to Easter, and you're back to Christmas again. So if you break it down that kind of way, I suppose, you will find it will be that little bit easier. So you can plan that out. And on Google, there's a lot of planners out there that people can use or even make one up themselves. So that's my little tip. Darren, there's one here for you, and I think you could answer this one. Should you use, from O'Brien, should you use your brand for Twitter?
Oh, I definitely recommend it, yeah. I mean, even just not as your primary kind of business social media, but keep it running in the background. Because you just never know when you might either see somebody looking for your product, or you never know that just by, like, Niamh herself has a great personality. So maybe if her personality shines through on Twitter, people kind of go, you know what, I like that girl. I'd like to throw some business her way. There's just no harm in having it. And it's also like you're kind of keeping your finger on the pulse as well by being on there, because news is born on Twitter. You know, everyone knows that if something's happening, just search it on Twitter and you'll find hundreds of people talking about it straight away, you know.
No, and that's it. And I suppose people forget that they often forget between their own personal Twitter or even Facebook and their business or service, Facebook or Twitter. And they often get the two of them mixed up. So the brand should be nearly the same across all platforms.
Well, yeah, I mean, no matter what the brand is, I mean, people always like to feel a kind of connection with them. They like to see a personality shining through. It's like whenever you see a company kind of engaging in a bit of banter online, people kind of go, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of funny, you know, and they feel an affiliation with them immediately because it kind of softens them, you know. I mean, obviously, like, you know, you're not going to expect like a government department or ever to have a personality as such on Twitter, because you don't want them to have it almost. But for a local business especially, it's just nice when you get that personality across. It just makes them more approachable. And God, if you're not approachable, then no one's going to buy off you, you know.
Exactly, because that's your personality, and you have to bring your personality is part of your brand as well. And if you can't get that across, then you're losing there straight away.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Darren. Wait, let's see. Now there's a few nice questions coming in here. Now for Dave Manser. What?
Hello.
You're the web developer here. So for example, there was one question there that came in, and they was asking, why is it important to have a website? And I know that you tipped off that already, and but they do most of their sales on Facebook. But Facebook could actually close down, and it did actually happen in Australia, didn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, not everyone's on Facebook either, you know. There are some demographics that haven't really engaged with Facebook. You know, there's kind of the usership of Facebook tends to fall off a little bit from the age 40 plus. So, you know, I suppose tapping into what Amy was saying, given that there are more older people searching online and shopping online these days, yeah, absolutely, sell on Facebook to your heart's content. But I do still firmly believe that every business should have a website, because ultimately Facebook can't do everything for everyone. And as well, you know, so much of your business is going to come through a Google search. Your tools for getting your Facebook business page up to #1 in Google are so limited compared to what you've got on your own website. So to me, it leaves you with a lot more options that are open. And then, you know, good luck trying to make Facebook talk nicely to a till at the front of your shop, you know, to manage your stock, that kind of thing. So look, yeah, there's definitely an argument for selling on Facebook, but I still think you need a website.
Yeah, very good point there, because for the simple fact you can customize that to your needs and wants. And that goes back to, there was a post in here from Geraldine Connery. What if your product is a service? Would you go about it in a different way? I would say no, you go about it the same way, because it's still your product and still that's your brand. Your service is your brand.
Absolutely, yeah. You can absolutely sell services online. You know, the way you manage your services, the way you sell and market your services, obviously is different. The one thing I would say is if you are selling a service online, basically you're selling time. So if you are selling time through your website, manage it properly, because the one thing you don't want to do is have a diary in the car and you're taking bookings in that and then you're selling them online, because all that's going to result in is you're double selling yourself and you're going to be needing to be in two places at the one time. So if you are going to sell services online, I would strongly recommend looking at some kind of application that might synchronize with your website, that might give you synchronized with your Google or your Apple Calendar. And it would allow you to do that. So there's a great one out there, simplybook.me, which we've used for a couple of clients. It's very, very good, very cheap to onboard, integrates nicely with the website, and plays nicely with your Google Calendars. So that's the kind of tip I would have if you're selling services online.
Brilliant. And I suppose you just tipped off it there now with Google. Google offers so much as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a search engine or email. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of stuff that Google actually offers.
It really is. We're very much adopters of the Google ecosystem here, in that we very, very rarely use anything Microsoft. Everything we do, wherever possible, we do through Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive. It keeps all the content in one place, cuts down on sort of threads of emails and trying to gather stuff through email conversations that happened, and somebody emailed me the wrong attachment and I've got the out-of-date version, and who has the up-to-date version and all that nonsense. No, put it in a Google Doc. Everyone has the up-to-date one at their fingertips.
Perfect. Dave, thanks a million for that. Now, Claire, there's a question that came in here, and I suppose with the work you're doing with the radio, with WLR FM, it's people are talking about negative posts. So Oliver just put in, he said, deal with negative posts on Facebook and Twitter. What do you do to deal with negative posts, and what would your advice be?
Yeah, so I suppose, like, from a WLR perspective, or from any news site, there's always going to be negative comments on some news stories. Like, it's just the nature. If the story is negative, there's going to be negative comments. And I suppose, like, what we would do, like, it's a good thing on Facebook as well to set up your profanity filter, I think it's called. So you can, like, ban certain words appearing on your page, and those comments are automatically hidden. So I would definitely, I mean, it's not kind of hiding comments, negative comments about your brand. It's just, you don't want that kind of stuff appearing on your page. So from that perspective, definitely set on the profanity filter and just kind of monitor comments. But then, from a business perspective then as well, if you're a restaurant, or I would deal with the negative comments. So, I would always try and respond to it in like a constructive way, and, kind of chat about it, and maybe, kind of, if it's kind of getting a bit, I wouldn't say heated, but take it into a private message as well. Ask them to private message you so that it's not there for the whole world to view. But don't take it personally. I think that's something I've learned over the years, and I'm sure a lot of people here will agree that it's hard not to take a lot of it personally. I think a lot of people forget that there's an actual person sitting behind the phone or the computer screen that actually has to read these comments. So it definitely don't take it personally, and just remember that you're doing your best.
Brilliant, because one of the comments left on the post was by Grant Perry, and he said his advice would be don't feed the trolls. And I think that's brilliant advice, because you can be drawn in there and there's no way out.
Yeah. And I suppose, especially the likes on Twitter, I think the people that are just there to troll, and Instagram and Facebook as well. I think a profile picture and a username says a lot about a person as well. It's kind of obvious if they're a troll. But look, if it's constructive criticism, grand. But if it's someone that's proper trolling you, just don't be afraid to hide the comment.
No, exactly. And I think that's a very fair point as well. Now, we have another question in there that I go to throw to you, Claire, as well. From Class Art, boosting posts on Facebook, is boosting better or is creating an ad better? I mean, what would you prefer to use?
So I suppose, from a WLR perspective, we wouldn't boost a lot of our posts. I find that boosting posts on Facebook definitely puts your engagement down. I know that's the way the Facebook algorithm works, is the more money you give Facebook, the less kind of organic engagement you're going to have on further posts. So, but if we were working with a specific client and they did want to put a bit of money behind something, we would go with the boost and the post route as opposed to an ad. But again, if you're a smaller brand, there's no harm in getting Facebook ads up there, or even, you know, you can do the ads where you promote your page. So if you're scrolling through your news feed, you get a suggested kind of promoted post that is literally just information about your website or your brand. So as I said, from our experience, more boosting posts, but you can definitely do ads as well. But just remember, like, organic engagement is so important, and the more money you give these social networks, the more that the organic engagement is going to go down.
I always find as well that what the mistake that people make is leave the post go organic for the first 24 hours. If you want to boost it, then do that, because if you put money on it at the start, they'll only use that organic reach. They'll make money for nothing anyway.
Yeah, completely.
So hold off. Yeah. Now, lads, we only have a couple of minutes left, and there's some great questions there, and I'm sorry we won't get to all the questions, but Jennifer Tobin sent in a question, and she's asked the whole panel. So basically, 10, 20 seconds each, lads, if you could just answer this question. What if there was one thing you could change about social media? What would you change and why? So, Claire, we'll start off with you, since you were the last person I was talking to.
I would love if social media networks kind of put more time into getting trolls off social media. Definitely, like those usernames, those profile pictures that are clearly fake people, and also an edit tweet feature. I don't know if Darren agree with me here, but definitely an option to be able to edit your tweets and put maybe longer videos on Twitter. Yeah.
Perfect. Darren, to you then, what would you change and why?
I would originally have thought the edit tweet was a good idea, but then I started thinking about the people who can go back and edit and change what they originally meant, which I don't actually like. So now what I'd like to change on Twitter is an edit tweet function just for the first 30 seconds. So you can edit it and you can't edit it after that, because even if you make one of those there mistakes, you can just edit it quickly. That's my change. It's not groundbreaking, but there you go.
Brilliant. Amy, what would you change and why?
Like Claire said, there's a lot of spam on social media, so better filters for that. Yeah, it's quite tedious, like when you have message requests and like spam groups.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Kirsten, what you could change? What would you change and why?
100% the trolls and bullying. It's just, there's people there that are literally just existing to upset people, and that just annoys me.
Keyboard warriors.
Keyboard warriors, yeah, exactly. So definitely that. I think it would make social media a nicer place. Brilliant,
thanks for that. And Dave Manser, finally, what would you change if you could?
Outside of fitting a breathalyzer to Facebook, I think I would love to see the big social medias just held much more accountable for the role they play in society and the massive influence that big money can and has wielded on them. I'd just like to see a lot more accountability, and I'd like to see a lot more kind of if there is big money being thrown at influencing a particular agenda, I would like to see a lot more in terms of counterbalancing opinion and a broader spread of opinion across it, to just hold back the corrosive influence they've had over the last few years.
I mean, this is why, from my part, this is why it's so important to have the newspapers and the radio, because we need to have all those forms of mediums to be able to come up to an informed opinion. And Absolutely. Like everybody else, our opinions only change as the facts change. And this is why we need the newspapers and the radio as well, and proper journalism. What do you think of that, Baron Skelton, after you abused me this morning? So, listen, I hope you all enjoyed that. And as I said, there are more questions here, but sadly we're after running out of time. And again, to all the panelists and from myself, Paul, I'm going to hand you back now to, I suppose, the studio. Back to you, Teresa.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much. Yeah, so again, a massive thank you to you for joining us this morning. If you want any information, more about our panelists or any of the information that was shared across the event or any of the events that took place this week, you can head over to the Waterford Local Enterprise Office Facebook page. You can visit their website, localenterprise.ie/Waterford, and of course follow them on Twitter at WaterfordLEO. A huge thank you again as well to each of our panelists, Dave Manser, Darren Skelton, Amy Orr, Claire Power and Kirsten Mate-Mar. Paul, thank you to you, Waterford in your pocket, for putting together all of the video clips that you saw this morning. Of course, thanks to Tom and Dean and the crew in Frontline Audiovisual for streaming the event. And of course, a massive thank you to Jackie and the team at the Waterford Local Enterprise Office for a mammoth week of events this week. A quick reminder of our competition: to win a €200 voucher courtesy of the Local Enterprise Office. Simply share a favourite highlight from Local Enterprise Week on social media and use the hashtag Making It Happen. The Local Enterprise Office, as you know, it provides a number of services to startups and established businesses, and it promotes entrepreneurship across the county. And as we see out the event this morning, we'll take a look back on a review of the supports provided by the Waterford Local Enterprise Office to businesses in all industries across the county over the past year. Many thanks again for joining us this morning. Stay safe and stay at home.